This Frostwilder build boasts strong survivability, crowd control and excellent damage output. A great build for clearing enemies and bosses alike. It may not have the extreme burst potential of some builds, but it makes up for it in its ability to clear levels in top tier times. Let's get into it. The core of this build is a combination of the Blizzard ability with Wrath of Nature to debuff enemies for an additional 54% damage. The Spore Warden's Blizzard ability combines incredibly well with the Brr-Zerker class feat, which adds frost damage when an action skill is triggered, and also its skill tree which buffs frost damage and its efficiency through Ancestral Frost, Icebreaker and Cold Snap. The 3 frost cyclones created by Blizzard track enemies and deal damage, even to enemies in the air, which is incredibly useful against wyverns and Cyclops. I am putting 5 points into Bounty of the Hunt to reduce the cooldown of Blizzard so that I can get it back as quickly as possible, which helps to keep those great debuffs going. This is buffed to a 28% cooldown reduction by my armor, but more on that shortly. While the damage of Blizzard is buffed through 3 points into Affinity, the majority of the damage this build deals is through spell and gun damage, which is buffed via 5 points into Eagle Eye, 3 points in Windrunner and 1 point in Headhunter. My armor also increases gun damage by 25% and all damage dealt by another 15%, along with some nice survivability for this build. The buffs to my skill tree I'm getting here are reasonable but not perfect. Buffing Bounty of the Hunt is okay, but I would prefer to buff Wrath of Nature if I could here. However, the buff to Iron Squall is actually excellent for the main weapon I like to use with this build, a crossblade shotgun. Now the unique thing about this shotgun is that it fires magical enemy beams in a cross shape which apply both frost and fire damage with the version I have, making it a great weapon against multiple enemy types. It also has a reasonable spread, so you can hit multiple enemies at once. Its energy beams pass through solid objects, making cover irrelevant, and it just feels great to use, with a satisfying blast with every shot. Now this one isn't the best roll that you could get, but I am still waiting for a better one with frost damage on it. The ability on my armor is, to be technical, crap. For this build I prefer an amalgam armor piece, but a volatile or chaotic epic would probably be just as good. The ability on my amulet though is pretty damn awesome for this build, as are the buffs to frost damage, Spore Warden power and all damage dealt. I am putting 3 points into Quiver of Holdings, which also works really well with the crossblade. Quiver of Holding increases my magazine size, which bumps my DPS significantly, as does the fire rate increase of up to 24% you get from Windrunner, which you really notice when it kicks in. Added to this, the ward I'm using buffs fire rate by a further 25%, and also reload speed by 20% when your ward is depleted, which is exactly why I'm picking up on armoured defence from the Brr-Zerker skill tree. This buffs my health by 150%, but more importantly reduces my ward by 50%, making it easy to keep it depleted and the buffs active. This also synergises well with the rings I'm using, the effects of which are doubled when my ward is not full, which ideally is all the time. Now these particular rings are far from optimised, but getting the perfect roll is an absolute nightmare. I can't tell you how many shards I've fed to vomiting bunnies trying to get them. What I'm looking for is gun damage along with action skill cooldown rate to get Blizzard back as quickly as possible, action skill duration to keep Blizzard up as long as possible, shotgun or pistol crit hit damage, and even shotgun magazine size or reload speed. My best ring has 2 of these, which is pretty pathetic after all of the grinding I've done. Speaking of shocking RNG, enchantments. What an awful system. I can't re-roll the shotgun anymore, and this enchant is not great to be honest. Thankfully on my other weapons I have had slightly better luck. I am running a liquid cooling, which even after the recent nerf is still a solid weapon, and a rain of arrows shotgun, which received a very nice buff indeed and is now a really great weapon. Both of these I rolled with a great damage buff. I'm also using a White Rider when I need to burn down armor. The enchantment roll on this is okay. Use this gun on single beam when it's needed. The Also Magic EXE is another good option you could use instead of this, albeit it dips in the same ammo pool as liquid cooling, so it's an either or. For my melee weapon I'm using a Wailing Banshee, and it's a great stat stick in which I managed to roll a great enchantment for this build. It also has an interesting buff in Amped, which works well with a high powered weapon like a shotgun. if I could ever remember to melee. For my spells I'm using 2. For normal enemies I'm using this Glacial Cascade, which deals great damage, has range and a nice spread to hit multiple enemies. It is also incredibly easy to use and hit my target, which I can't save for every spell. For boss fights I'm swapping to this Buffmeister, which buffs my gun handling, accuracy and recoil by 60%, fire rate by 25% and reload speed by 40%, and also my ability damage by 80% and ability crit chance by 65%. Popping it with Blizzard gives me some great burst damage. Now, with this build, being aggressive and getting into the face of enemies is a necessity to maximise your shotgun damage. Not only does this help to wipe out my ward and gain its buffs, but I've also put 5 points into the old ways, buffing my damage and damage reduction the closer the enemy is. I've put my final skill points into survivability, with just a little touch of damage output. Ancient Fury buffs my maximum health and area damage. Medicinal Mushroom I think is a great skill for any solo players, as is Relentless Rage. Both of these give me a nice damage buff as well when I come out of Save Your Soul status. With this build I'm putting my hero points into Attunement for the cooldown reduction, Constitution so that I can be close to enemies without being one-shot, and Wisdom as frost damage ticks deal a nice punch, letting me 2-tap most enemies with a shotgun blast and my ice spikes. For my background story I have gone with Village Idiot, but to be honest I don't think it makes much difference which one you pick. Go with the one you like. It's a role-playing game after all. Check out my other build guides on my channel here. Until next time, Casual out.